It is not that money always that matters. It is a group of people, I would call them as a mafia, who have brought the bad name to the city. The nexus of this mafia, whether it is the builders mafia or the land mafia or some people in bureaucracy. And we need a visionary leaders in judiciary also who understand the science. And today I see sometimes the judiciary is not favorable to the environmental thing. I was abused. The equipment my students carrying were all taken away by those builders mafia. Now let us make the Bangalore livable. The first approach is to throw that tech park from that Bellandur, Agaram, the wetland. Let us not think about having industry everywhere. There is no need to have industries in every parcel of land in Bangalore. It is the responsibility of the government not to have illogical projects in the ecologically sensitive region or ecologically important region, hydrologically important region. My urge to the government is please do not alter the integrity of Mekedatu region. I am speaking truth, not for my benefit. It is for the state benefit. So neither I am threatened, nor the government is threatened with this thing. Science is for the benefit of the society, and scientist is for the welfare of the society. And I welcome criticism. Most welcome. Let us have a dialogue.
So my guest today is a scientist par excellence, one who has been telling and talking about the impending water crisis in this city. In fact, what he spoke about it almost a decade ago did come true in 2020. Now, I first met him when I was covering the infamous Bellandur and Varthur lakes that were on fire, and later on the toxic foam, and which people started to term it as snow on the roads there of Bellandur. So today, I'd like to introduce to you Dr. TV Ramachandra from the Center for Ecological Sciences, Indian Institute of Science. He's an environmental researcher who focuses on the Western Ghats, on ecology, Bengaluru lakes, and much more. It's always a pleasure speaking to you and meeting you right here at the IISc, Doctor.
Okay, thank you. It's a pleasure to talk to you also. I'm sure that the way you are recording, it will be disseminated to the wider section of society. Bringing awareness in general public is more important. See, Indian Institute of Science is known for doing science, but doing science which is relevant to society is more important. That's what the current year Science Day, the theme is taking the science to the society for the benefit of the society.
Doctor, I remember coming over here. This was about, I think, 2013, 2014. I'm not sure if this was a new building then also. And you had spoken about what would happen in Bengaluru 2020, and it happened. 2022, 24, we saw what happened here. But my question is this, Doctor. How long does Bengaluru have before it completely runs out of water from all its sources? And will it happen?
Well, in fact, as a scientist, I work with the data. I have looked at the change of the landscape over the last 5 decades. Fortunately, we have launched the satellites way back in 70s. Every 21 or 30 days interval, we get the picture of the Earth. When we look at that picture of the Earth and when we analyze that using artificial intelligence and machine learning, we see that in 1970, the landscape had about 68% vegetation cover and about the 7% under building and paved surfaces. And today, 2024, if you look at 86.5% of the landscape is covered with buildings and paved surfaces. And about less than 3% is the vegetation cover. Transition from a porous landscape to paved landscape is contributing to the serious water crisis. When the landscape is porous, it allows or facilitates groundwater recharge. The Bangalore, if you look at, depends on the groundwater to an extent of 40% of its requirement. We require about 18 TMC of water. 60% come from the Cauvery Basin, while the remaining 40% come from the groundwater sources. We have made the landscape paved. In that process, we are not allowing the groundwater recharge. Not only that, we have also allowed the over-exploitation of the groundwater by the construction and industries. In the process, we saw the groundwater table is depleting. behind the thing. And in some of the location, people have gone down to 1,800 feet and there is no water. This is what I had predicted way back in 2014 when I saw the transition of the forest landscape to paved landscape. I had requested the government to intervene to make the city livable. I wrote an article, editorial in Current Science, highlighting this problem and requesting the governance mechanism to concentrate on the making the city livable, which means maintain the minimum green cover in the city. For any city to have adequate oxygen, you need to have 33% green cover, and you should not allow the population to go beyond that, beyond the threshold. We have allowed both of that. That means we have planned or we didn't do the planning, which led to the unplanned growth. That has led to the water crisis. And what we notice now, see now today, if you look at the serious thing is the groundwater table has declined, and Cauvery Basin, if you look at, because of the changes in climate with the global warming, we had an erratic rainfall during the last 2 years. In the process, the 60% of the water which the city required didn't come from Cauvery. Because of short supply from Cauvery, coupled with the groundwater depletion, that led to a ground zero situation. We didn't have water for the city. So that is where we need to wake up, and we need to do the planning, and we should decongest the city. If we do that, probably our children will have the water.
Doctor, what's surprising is that you have spoken about this. Experts like you have been talking about it for such a long time. What is it that is actually stopping the politicians, the bureaucrats, and also people from really looking into this? Everyone knows what's happening. 2024 people suffered. I have seen visuals, and I've seen in so many localities people waiting for water tankers. Water tankers don't get water. Those people can't drill bore wells like you mentioned in the city. They have to go to the outskirts of Bengaluru. What is stopping them from really doing something? Everyone is suffering, politicians and bureaucrats included.
I would say that that's where I said that we didn't do the planning of the city. We should have done that. Our emphasis on the development and increasing the gross domestic product, that is GDP. In the process, we lost the eco-sensitive region, ecologically vital region, which was helping in retaining the water and providing the recreation and the oxygen for the dwellers of the city. Today, if you look at, we have less than 3% green cover. We did the quantification of the trees in the in the Bangalore. Our study shows we have 14,78,000 trees in Bangalore for a population of about 9.5 million. That means for every 7%, there is one tree. If you look at how many trees a person requires, see, all of us breathe. When we breathe, we give out a carbon dioxide to an extent of 540 to 980 grams per person per day. And 1 hectare of tree removes the carbon to an extent of 6 to 9 tons per year. By that ratio, we should have had 7 or 8 trees per person. What we have is 7%, 1 tree. This is a reverse situation. When the green cover is not there, coupled with the abuse of the water body, has led to the landscape not being porous. We didn't allow the groundwater recharge to happen. Now, if you want to reverse the process, what we need to do is, even today, in 70s we had 730 lakes were there. Today we have 216 lakes, and our lakes, because of the Bangalore topography, are interconnected. It's an undulating terrain. We have broadly 3 watersheds. The one is KC Valley, Hebbal Nagavara, and Rishabhavati. If we can maintain the interconnectivity among the lake, we have solved the problem of the flooding in the city. There won't be the flooding problem. That is where we need to become ruthless and remove all encroachers, whether it's big or small. We have to evict all of them at any cost. We should not show any mercy on any encroacher. Because of one encroacher, hundreds of families face the vulnerable situation, and also there are instances of children getting killed in the flooded region. So that is where we need to take a harsh decision and re-establish the interconnectivity among the lake so that we have solved the flooding problem.
But Doctor, you and I believe that the government must take action against encroachers, but we don't see action being taken because two things. One is the moment you say that action should be taken, the people, the builders run to court. The court then gives a stay. That's one. Two, politicians don't want to take action because it's vote bank. So that's what I'm wondering. Is there any sort of, will things change over here because no one wants to take action?
No. Let us hope for better. Government, when we talk about government, who is government? We all constitute government. People, this is a democracy. By the people, for the people. That is where, there is the role played by the local people in the governance mechanism. That's what the democracy does it, and through the decentralized governance mechanism. That's where we came up with the panchayat system, municipalities, and we had our own governance for a prudent management of natural resources in the region. When there is a decentralized governance, the people cannot go against the wishes of the people in that locality. So whether it's a builder from some other region or it is an encroacher in the region, the people will take action. You can see the eviction happening in the day. See, now I've been working on lakes in Bangalore for the last 3 decades. You see the success stories of the rejuvenation of the lake. It has happened where local people were actively involved. And because of them, for example, Saraki Lake, a group of enterprising people in that locality, they went to the court, they convinced the court about the encroachment, and court helped in the evicting the encroachers. Not only that, they also pressurized the BBMP to rejuvenate the lake. And I was a member of the committee. And you see that within a year of rejuvenation, when the desilting was done, within a year, groundwater table improved by 300 feet. After 3 years, when the entire city faced a severe water crisis and the temperature increased, look at the Saraki Lake. The groundwater table was less than 500 feet and there was a lot of water in the lake. And because of high moisture content, temperature in the locality was at least 2 to 3 degrees lower than the surrounding. That means that is the model to be replicated throughout the city. Now, the Saraki Lake receives the sewage, but there is a wetland system which manages the nutrient in the sewage, and also chemical ions are taken away by the secondary treatment plant, as it happens in Jakkur Lake. Now you see that we have a success model, Jakkur Lake, Rachinhalli, and Saraki Lake, like this, where cost effective economic models are implemented based on the nature-based principle to treat the wastewater that is entering the lake. And that wastewater, when we remove the nutrient, the lake gets the clean water and the surrounding borewells will not have any contaminant. For example, Jakkur Lake. My studies in 2005 shows the presence of nitrate in Jakkur Lake, and also surrounding there were 25 wells were there. All of them had nitrate. Nitrate is a carcinogen which introduces cancer. So when we brought this to the notice of the government took up the rejuvenation of the lake. I was a member of the Jakkur Lake committee, and Yellappa Reddy was the chairman of the committee. At the time, government allocated a fund. It was not sufficient to have the treatment which can remove the nutrient. The money was sufficient to have a secondary treatment plant which would remove only the chemical ion and large particle. But our problem is nitrate and phosphate, which is because, and we have to remove the nutrient. To remove the nutrient, you need to have a tertiary treated water. To have a tertiary treatment, the money was not adequate. So then what I did was, I convinced the government as well as the committee to have a nature-based solution. We integrated a constructed wetland and algal pond along with the secondary treatment plant, and the discharge of that is let into the lake. And for the last 10 or 12 years, my students have monitored the lake. Today, there are 300 wells are there. And when you do the water quality of the Jakkur Lake, we will not see any nitrate either in 300 wells nor in the Jakkur Lake. That means I have a satisfaction of giving a clean water at least to those 300 well users in that locality. And that is the model to be replicated throughout the city in 216 lakes. The city uses 18 TMC of water, which means we also generate 18 TMC of wastewater. If we treat that, we'll have 16 TMC of treated water. And apart from that, these lakes can also store the rainwater. To solve the problem of water scarcity in the city, we need to do the rainwater harvesting. If you look at how much rainwater the city gets, on average we get 700 to 850 millimeter rainfall, which means about 15 TMC of water we get it. And to catch this rainwater, the two approaches is, one is at the individual level, you can have two rooftop harvesting, and there are instances people get 4 to 5 months additional water because of rainwater harvesting at individual homes. The next best option is to retain the rainwater through the lake. That is where we need to rejuvenate the lake and retain the rainwater. And our lakes are interconnected. If we can if you re-establish the interconnectivity among the lake, apart from that, if you ensure that the clean treated water gets into the lake, we have water throughout the year. And there will be an increase in the groundwater, which can meet the domestic water requirement. And the city will never face the water crisis with this model of rainwater harvesting and wastewater treatment.
But doctor, these are a big ifs. Two things are there that you spoke about. One is rainwater harvesting. We've been talking about this for such a long time. Nothing has happened. The other one is interconnecting lakes. We see buildings that have been built over there. We see roads that are built over there. We see houses built over there. The ones that you spoke about, these are good examples and it's really worked. But people like me are gonna always ask, why is the government not willing to do that? You're from the IISc, you're talking about this, you're actually showing them that things can be done. What is stopping them? Is it vote bank politics? Is it because of greed? This is what people think.
No, of course, there is a greed. See, when you have a development without planning, emphasis on the GDP, naturally the degradation of the ecosystem happens. That is where we need to include degradation cost in our GDP. That is called green GDP. When we do that, then you will see the sustainable development happens, and all our approaches will be towards meeting the SDG, sustainable development goals. Now, coming back to the question of Bangalore, I have not lost a hope. If I see a success in Jakkur Lake, Saraki Lake, Rachanhalli Lake, and now at Bellandur and Varthur, I am sure by bringing awareness among the local people, I can change the system. That is where the environment education plays a very important role. When we bring awareness among the public, when we bring awareness among the youth, youth with environmental knowledge, they become sensible. When they become sensible, they become responsible, and they will not allow the pollution happening in the water body or abuse of the water body. Today, abuse is happening because we have taught our children the GDP model. We have told the children how to make more money. We made our children to be more greedy. But if we shift toward the green GDP, and if we give the emphasis on livable city and happy living, then probably the people will move in that direction. That's where environment education plays an important role, and we have to enhance the literacy, environmental literacy among the public. See, my study about environmental literacy in the city shows that only 3.5% of Bangaloreans are environmentally literate, which means they know how to manage solid waste, how to manage liquid waste, and why it has to be managed, from where we get water, etc. But if you bring the awareness among the people, then probably we will enhance the environmental literacy. That is a crucial thing. That is where the government has to bring in the bringing awareness among the public through the environmental education at all level. Fortunately, today we have the new education policy which gives the activity-based learning. That also gives a scope for bringing a awareness among the children, and that is the hope. See, NEP was developed where the people like me who are part of the system. A lot of thinking has happened. That is where the government, irrespective of who rules the state, should accept the NEP and be implemented for the benefit of the state. See, if we make the state, everyone happy, that is the sustainable development. If everyone is healthy, that is the development we require, not the current city. See, the current city has a serious problem of contamination. We have the air contamination because of that respiratory diseases are there, and we have water contamination and land contamination. For example, my study in Varthur Lake, Bellandur Lake, downstream of Varthur Lake and Bellandur Lake, when I looked at the water, groundwater, as well as the vegetable that is grown in that region, we saw the heavy metal in the groundwater as well as the vegetables. That's how it is getting into our food chain. The implication of that is the increase in the cancer in the city and the kidney failure. If you look at the cancer, Bangalore is number one, as per the latest statistics. Kidney failure, which was 1 in 1 lakh about 12 years back, today it's 1 in 5,000. The vulnerable section of society is becoming a victim of the kidney failure. When I visit the rural schools in a peri-urban area or a rural area, I see the children's having the kidney problem. For example, Ramgonalli in the Varthur downstream, I come across the government school, a boy losing the kidney. Then I thought that may be a problem of the government school where children come from the below poverty level. Then I went to the nearby the private school, the KK English High School. When I visited the school, I saw the LKG child had lost a kidney and 2 girls in 8th standard had lost both the kidney. When I visited recently after a year the same school, when I asked the principal, Mr. M.A. Khan, he told me the girl who was in 8th standard last year, she is no more. The youth are asset of the nation because of the pollution in the environment, because of our mismanagement with the unplanned developmental activity. We are losing the asset of our nation, the youth. That is where we have to bring awareness and make them sensible and responsible. If we do that, we will have a city which is livable. My wish is to make the city livable for everyone, not for few.
Doctor, you have been working in this for a very, very long time. You have come up with so many research papers. You have spoken at so many scientific symposiums on this issue. Don't you get exasperated with dealing with politicians and bureaucrats that no one is basically heeding to what you're trying to tell them? That we need to save our water bodies. We need to do something to keep the city safe and alive.
Well, I'm basically a teacher. Teacher never get tired. So the job of a teacher is to communicate and bring awareness and bring the improvement in their knowledge. That's what I've been doing it. So when you refer to the current decision makers, we have to communicate to them. That is the job of a scientist. And we have been doing it and we have been successful to some extent. If you look at the kind of success what we have got in Karnataka compared to the other state, we are better off. For example, when the lakes were frothing, we looked at the froth, we looked at the constituents, the chemical constituents of froth. We understood froth is because of the phosphate. Then from where the phosphate is coming? Then we notice that phosphate comes when we are letting the untreated sewage and industrial effluent. Then how does phosphate get into untreated sewage? See, we all wash cloth with detergent. Detergent has a phosphate. So now that is the culprit. Now, when I talked to the minister at that time, the Anant Kumar was the minister in charge of chemical fertilizer at the central government. He asked me to prepare a scientific document highlighting the need for bringing the restriction on the phosphate in the detergent. At that time, when I looked at these studies, the various similar episodes across the globe, I noticed that in the US and Europe, the Great Lakes, Canada, had instances of frothing. They had brought the restriction on the phosphate way back in 90s. If you want to minimize the frothing happening in Yamuna or in Bangalore Lake or any water body throughout the country, first thing we need to do is the restriction on the phosphate used in detergent. Then also there was a challenge for a scientist. We have to give an alternative. We cannot just stop it. We looked at the availability of alternate for the phosphate, which are available in India, in Maharashtra, etc. So that is what we deliberated in our scientific report. We gave it to the Mr. Anant Kumar. Then he asked me to write a letter to the Prime Minister. I wrote a letter to the Prime Minister highlighting the importance of bringing the restriction on the phosphate. Believe it or not, within 6 months, BIS comes up with a norm regulating the phosphate use in detergent. See, that is what you cannot expect the politicians to have all this knowledge. That is the job of a scientist and researcher. For a good governance, every state should have a think tank of intellectuals. They can give the suggestions, they can recommend the government, and they can bring awareness among the bureaucrats and the government, the politician, about the need for sustainable development and the conducive developmental path, so that your environment doesn't get this degraded too much.
Doctor, even if you have a think tank, do you actually believe that our bureaucrats and politicians will pay heed to what you're saying? Because when you're talking about road safety, there are so many experts who have studied from IITs telling the government what has to be done. They don't listen. Over here also, if there is a think tank, will the politicians actually listen? I mean, I'm just taking your example. You've been talking about this for such a long time.
We should never get disappointed. That's what the teacher.
But how long?
No, that's what the teacher does. Teacher continues the journey forever. When he ends the journey, his students will take it forward. We will never stop. And the second thing, when you take up this kind of issues, you should never be disappointed. You should have a hope in the system. Look at the stories of Jakkur Lake, Saraki Lake, Bellandur and Varthur Lake today. Don't you see a hope in the system? Why you have to see for 100% success? Even a 5% success in your lifetime is a great achievement. I have a satisfaction of giving a water to the Jakkur residents in Jakkur. And you see the Bellandur and Varthur Lake. We developed the Rejuvenation blueprint based on our 15 years of study in Bellandur and Varthur Lake. There were 2 theses, doctoral theses came out of the thing. Then a group of youngsters from Whitefield and Varthur met me. At that time I said, if I just talk to you, you people listen to me and go. I want something to happen. Then they asked me what they can do with it. When I said that there is a report, scientific report prepared by us, you should take it to the next level. Government, as well as if government is not listening, judiciary. Fortunately, the Supreme Court, the NGT, took the thing seriously. They penalized the government of Karnataka 500 crores. And that money is kept in escrow account. They constituted a green, committee. NGT constituted a committee for the Rejuvenation Lake. Santosh Shetty was the chairman of the committee, and I was a member of the thing. And there was a significant progress. The bureaucrats and the engineers were listening to us, and the implementation started in that way. Of course, last 1 year, I see there is a slight the slowness in the sluggish in this one. It may be because of the bureaucratic hurdles of the financial aspect, etc. But I've been intervening in a system. I hope to see that Bellandur and Varthur lakes are rejuvenated. If I do that, that is the greatest contribution IISc has given to the people of that locality, which will store 5.4 TMC of water, the water scarcity in that region I have addressed forever. And more importantly, children will have the clean water without any contaminant. Clean air, clean water and environment, Article 21 assures for all of us. We are just making that to happen in the system through our science.
Doctor, every time we talk about Bellandur and Varthur, I remember, because that's when I was associated with you for the first time. I remember as a TV reporter standing over there when the frothing took place. And every time the froth would fall, or the foam would fall on our skin, from white, it would turn into black soot. And I remember speaking over there lives after lives throughout the day, because that is what they wanted us to do, to report the story. Your chest would burn. I would feel my throat irritated. Eyes would burn. It was that bad. I really hope things change there, doctor. But I want to know, when we talk about lakes, why should we save our lakes? You've spoken about all these things. Is there something else apart from just the improving the groundwater recharge over there? Is it just about the temperature, or is there something more?
See, actually, if you look at the lakes acts as the kidneys of the landscape, which means it helps in purifying the system. That's why it's called kidneys of the landscape, while the green spaces act as a lung for the landscape, which provide the oxygen for the people. Now, my study shows that if you want water, you need to conserve the lake. You have to manage the lake. For example, when the lakes were there, people were getting a groundwater at 100 feet, less than 100 feet. When the lake was removed, in 5 years, the groundwater table went down to 600 feet. And today, after 23 years, people have gone down to 1800 feet and there is no water, which highlights there is a linkage between the groundwater recharge to the lake in the vicinity. That is where 216 lake in our city, 198 watts. If we rejuvenate all the lake, we have enough water for the city. That is what we should do it without any excuse of money or this one. We have to bring awareness and more importantly, the participation of the local people is very vital. Success of lake rejuvenation is not just desilting the thing. We need to do the decontamination and arrest the contaminants coming to the lake, and post management is a crucial thing. That is where local people play a very important role. Now, Saraki Lake or Jakkur Lake is a success story thanks to the local people, local groups who have been consistently monitoring and bring pressure on the government. And when the government is not doing the job, through me, they have tried to address the issue. I have interviewed and seen that government listens to us and implement. So that way, I am fortunate that we have a kind of favorable environment where the bureaucrats might criticize me, but after my discussion, they have implemented us.
Politicians and bureaucrats both understand money. Is there any money aspects when we rejuvenate and keep a lake safe? Because that's the only thing that they understand, unfortunately.
See, we have done the valuation of ecosystem services. If you look at the kind of benefit people get from the lake in the form of fish, fodder, water, etc., it amounts to about 10,500 rupees per hectare per day.
10,500 per hectare per day.
That shows the worth of the lake. More importantly, it gives you the oxygen. It does the service of carbon sequestration. It removes the carbon. Algae in water body are the efficient carbon sequesters. They help you in maintaining the oxygen level in the vicinity, apart from giving you the food and recreation. Recreation is another this one. This one, if you look at recreation services provided by the lake, it amounts to about 1 to 1.5 lakh rupees per hectare per year kind of a thing, through the collection, the park fee, etc. So that shows the worth of the lake. And also when we rejuvenate the lake, naturally the kind of the water that we get, if we can reuse that water, you have a lot of money for that. Every 1,000 liters, if you are charging 50 rupees or 60 rupees, there is a revenue in this one. That is where sensible interventions are required. It is not that money always that matters. It is a group of people, I would call them as a mafias, who have brought the bad name to the city. The nexus of this mafia, whether it is the builders mafia or the land mafia or some people in bureaucracy, they are responsible for that. It is not that the entire bureaucrats are this one. And I have come across a sensible bureaucrats, people like Jairaj, and many are like that. Even the recent time, they all doing the thing. If you have succeeded, I would say that because of them. For example, I work with GIS, Geographic Information System. In a casual talk, we were telling Jairaj, we need to digitize the land records, etc., so that we'll have a better collection rate. When the session was implemented in 1 ward, Jairaj realized that the land, the tax through the SAS, self-assessment scheme, revenue went up by few crores. That is where, digitization of land things started happening in Karnataka, in Bangalore, and we are in the forefront. And that success is because of people like Jairaj. And he is the one who implemented Airavata. You don't have to fly all the time. He has given you the flying opportunity through the road transport, which is the Aam Aadmi's solution. That is where visionary people are required in executive mechanism, the bureaucracy. And we need a visionary leaders in judiciary also who understand the science. And today I see sometimes the judiciary is not favorable to the environmental thing. Probably there is also a gap in the judiciary. The kind of thing happens in executive mechanism with the corruption, etc., might be happening there, which is responsible. For example, Bellandur Lake, there is an encroachment. We have been, as a NGT committee, we asked the eviction of the thing because they are illegal encroachers. the unauthorized occupants. But unfortunately, judiciary has not given this one still, even after 5 years. How long the city has to wait? How long people in India has to wait for the justice? That is where we have to have the reform in the judiciary also, which is equally important. We need to have honest people in judiciary, not just in science. In all the sector, we need to have the people with integrity. That can happen only when you make them environmentally literate. People with environmental literacy, not only they will try to maintain their integrity, they will be true to the nation. That kind of society we need to develop. My simple prescription: teach a child to respect mother at home. When child grows up, that child will know how to respect mother, and it will also learn how to respect mother earth. We have solved the problem of what we are facing today. The best prescription is teach a child about the environment through a mother at home.
Doctor, I want to now talk about the Western Ghats. You have been associated with research in the Western Ghats for a very long time. The Madhav Gadgil report came about. The Karnataka government, I want to focus on what's happening here in Karnataka. They binned it. They said it's not feasible. It'll create a lot of problems. Then the Kasturi Rangan report came in. That itself was watered down. Very recently, they binned that as well, saying that it'll affect the livelihoods of people over there. I fail to understand why they fail to understand that if we save the Western Ghats, we will have water. Bengaluru will have water. Mysuru will have water. If you're looking at those areas, your Sakleshpur, your Shimoga, what is stopping the government from doing something to save the Western Ghats? You were explaining to me how important it is.
See, actually, the Western Ghat is also known as a water tower of India, because it retains the water and provides the water throughout the year to the dependent people in Deccan Peninsular India. Because of that water security, we have the food security. That means we have the benefit of water and food security from the Western Ghats. Now, when you look at the geographical, the extent of the Western Ghat, it's about 5% of India's geographical area. And out of 5%, probably about 36 or 40% we have identified as the ecologically sensitive, which amounts to 2% of the entire Western Ghats. We are asking only the 2% of the Western Ghat for the conservation. Now, to understand the importance of the Western Ghat, we have done the studies across the river basin. Our study shows in a watershed or the catchment area in a basin, which are dominated by native species forest, we have found the water bodies are perennial. When the catchment has more of monoculture plantation like rubber, acacia, etc., we see the water availability is only for 6 to 8 months. And where in the catchment, when the vegetation cover is less than 30%, water is available during the monsoon. Now look at the livelihood issue of the people. People who are in the vicinity of the native species forest, because the water is available throughout the year, they can grow multiple crop or a cash crop. Whereas the people in the vicinity of degraded landscape with a vegetation cover less than 30%, because the water is available only during monsoon or 4 to 6 months, they can grow only one crop. Look at the money, revenue they get. 1,54,000 rupees per acre per year in the vicinity of native species forest, while in the vicinity of degraded landscape, the people get 32,000 rupees per acre per year. Another interesting aspect is we looked at the yield of the crop. Wherever native species forests are there in the more than 60%, we saw that at least 60 to 70% of the rainfall get infiltrated. And that is the water which get infiltrated is available during the post-monsoon as the water in the water body. So that's where we saw that 12 months, 6 months and 4 months water depending on the forest cover. Now, if you look at the yield of the crop, in the vicinity of the native species forest, yield of the crop is, take example of paddy, which is about 14 to 18 quintal per acre. Whereas in the degraded catchment, it is about 6 to 8 quintal per acre. What is the underlying factor that is there? The pollinators. Pollinators are abundant where native species forests are there. in the villages of the native species, in the vicinity of native species forest, because of the abundant diverse pollination happens. When pollination happens, the yield of the crop is higher. That's where you have 14 to 18 quintal per acre, as against the degraded landscape with a poor pollination, you have 6 to 8 quintal per acre. Now the government of India wants to double the income of the farmer. That's a wonderful thing. 60% of our the countrymen are the farmers. If we double the income, then naturally their livelihood will go. So now my prescription is maintain the integrity of the forest or the ecosystem in the region. The forest will give the water, forest will give the pollinators, so that they have the higher yield, which gives the yield twice the sun in the degraded landscape. That is the thing. The government of India has to take it seriously. Now you might ask me how far the government has listened to us. I will tell you a couple of things. One is, when we talked about health of the soil, the government of India implemented the health card. Throughout the country, today you know the health of the soil in your vicinity at block level. And more importantly, that data is available online, so that researchers can use that data to find out what is the health of the vicinity. And also farmers. Now the farmers do not apply too much of the fertilizer, because they know what is the soil health, and depending on that they will apply the nutrient to compensate that. Now another interesting thing is, you might recall in early 2010-11 there was a crisis of fertilizer in our country. There were instances, the chief ministers going on dharana in front of the prime minister's office, etc. Now 2014, in a casual talk with Anant Kumar, we just mentioned the neem has a property of pesticide. If you add neem to the fertilizer, that will help. Our agenda is, when the neem is added to urea, it is called neem-coated urea. Then you cannot do the adulteration. See, large chunk of urea was going for adultering the food, the milk, etc. That was curtailed. 2015 onwards, you see there is a surplus the fertilizer in the country. That's how the sensible, the politician can see changes happening. I remember Anant Kumar for his taking these suggestions forward and implementing. And now one of the success story of the current government is availability of fertilizer and neem-coated urea, where they have addressed the misuse of urea. When you talk about the misuse of urea, there is a mafia behind that. That government has successfully handled that, and I give a due credit for taking the science and scientific suggestion to see the sustainability of the resources and happiness among the farmers. I have not seen in the last 1 decade any kind of fertilizer crisis in our country.
Doctor, I want to go back to the Western Ghats itself.
Yes.
Because when we spoke about the degradation, a lot of people say that it's because of climate change. As a scientist, is it climate change or is it human intervention that is leading to this degradation? Or both?
One is contributing to the other. One acts as a catalyst to the other. For example, unplanned developmental activity leads to the degradation of the forest. That is where you lose the ability to sequester the carbon or remove the carbon from the atmosphere. See, you talked about changes in climate. Why the changes in climate happen? It is because of the warming of the earth. Why the warming of the earth happen? Because of the increase in the greenhouse gas concentration in the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide, the species of carbon like carbon dioxide, methane, then nitrous oxide, sulfur, these are all greenhouse gases. When the concentration increases, they form an artificial layer in the atmosphere which does not allow the heat to escape. In the process, the earth becomes warmer. When earth becomes warmer, naturally there are changes in climate. Just an increase of 1.5 degrees Celsius, we have noticed that the insect species getting extinct, and another 0.5 degrees, we noticed another 8 species going extinct. These species are endemic species that are available locally, which are doing the job of the pollinator. Similarly, if you look at the plants, about 12 the plant species go extinct with a 1.5 degrees Celsius increase in temperature. And with another 0.5 degree thing, it will be about 18 to 20 plant species goes extinct. And the more worrying thing is increase in the sea level rise. With what 1.5 degree Celsius increase in temperature, 46 centimeter is the increase in the sea level, which will become 58 centimeter with the another 0.5 degrees Celsius. That is where we need to take the climate change seriously if you have to bring down the vulnerability. If you don't do it, then what happened in Wayanad and in the Kodagu will be repeating again and again. We are making the region vulnerable. When there is a vegetation cover in the region, the vegetation does the multiple job. One is the sequestering the carbon, and second is the roots in the vegetation act the help in binding the soil so that there is no landslide, mudslide happen. Our study in Kodagu and Kerala shows that wherever vegetation cover is there in a high hillock, there are no landslides. Where vegetation is converted into monoculture plantation, we see the mudslides happening in the region. That means the vegetation helps in the preventing the vulnerable situation. And if you look at the amount of carbon that is stored in the Western Ghats forest, and if you look at the amount of the forest, my study using the temporal remote sensing data shows that over the last 1.5 decade, we have lost 5% of evergreen forest. And today we have only 11% under evergreen forest. And total forest cover in the Western Ghats, entire Western Ghats, is about less than 18%. But as per the norm, we are supposed to have 33%, to meet the carbon sequestration capability, etc. Now we have lost that. And if you look at Cauvery Basin, over the last 6 decades, from 1965 to today, if you look at, we have lost 45% native forest. Because of that, Cauvery is unable to retain the water, and you see that flooding happening and water going to the ocean. The best way is to retain the native vegetation cover. Then 60 to 70% of the water, rainwater, gets infiltrated and gets stored in the underlying layer, saturated zone, vadose zone, etc. And that water is the water available in your streams and rivers and lake during the post-monsoon. We put a sensors to understand how much water get infiltrated when it rains across the various landscape dominated by native species forest, landscape dominated by monoculture plantation, landscape with the degraded landscape. Our study shows 65 to 70% of rainfall get infiltrated in a landscape dominated by native species forest to an extent of 60 to 70%. When the catchment is dominated by monoculture plantation and the degraded landscape, it's only 28 to 30% of the rainfall get infiltrated, and that is the water available for the next 2 or 2.5 months during the post monsoon, compared to the forest region where 12 months water is available. And if you look at the carbon service done by the forests in the Western Ghats, over the last whatever the number of years the Western Ghats is there, the total quantity amounts to about 1.48 million gigagram. And every year, about 33,000 gigagram of carbon gets sequestered by the forests in the Western Ghats. And that amount equivalent to the carbon that is emitted in the region, in the cities like Trivandrum, Cochin, Bangalore, etc. That means nature is doing the job. And if you assign the economic value as per taking into social cost of the carbon, it amounts to about 100 billion rupees or a $1.4 billion. Now you might ask, what is the use of this kind of numbers? When I go abroad representing the country, I tell them that this is the carbon that is stored in my forest in Western Ghats, is the carbon emitted by them during industrialization. It is their responsibility to compensate us, that they need to pay for the service provided by the forest in our country to an extent of 100 billion rupees. When they do that, we can also have conservation without grumbling for money. So that is how science can help in sustainable development and ensuring that we get enough revenue. We did recently the services provided by an ecosystem. For example, the forest ecosystem, if you look at the provisioning services, it amounts to about 1.5 to 2 lakh rupees per hectare per year in the form of timber. These are benefits. When you sell a timber, you have X amount. You deduct the cost out of that. That is the revenue you getting. We have accounted that revenue, and which amounts to about 1.5 to 2 lakh rupees per hectare per year. And if you take into account the regulating service like carbon sequestration, climate moderation, etc., and cultural services, the recreation and information service, etc., it amounts to about 1 million rupees per hectare per year. That means 10 lakh rupees per hectare per year, which shows that forests are a highly productive ecosystem. And because the forests are there, local people get the benefit of water and yield of the crop, and that's where their livelihood is taken care. And the thing, when we degrade the forest in the name of development, only bunch of few get the benefit of development, while the farmers become vulnerable section of society, losing the water and yield of the crop.
Doctor, all this information needs to be told to the people. People need to be educated. Like you said, when people are educated on what's happening in the environment and how it's affecting them, things actually change. You were telling me that from here at IISc, you've actually come out with something online where especially people in Bengaluru will be able to understand what's happening in their particular wards over a period of time. What is that?
See, actually, whatever the science you do, if the science is relevant to the society, the people start interacting with you. That is a good sign. And second thing is you have to bring awareness among all sections of the society. See, we have an environmental education program. We have a network of schools and colleges. About 40 to 45 institutions join hands with us. Regularly, children take part in environmental education. They do the lake monitoring, carbon sequestration assessment, etc. I organize a symposium popularly known as Lake Symposium. I have been doing it from 98. I have done 14 episodes of that. That means every even year, once in 2 years. For the last 14 events I have done. That means last 28 years I have conducted. Uniqueness of this event, being an international event, there are about 1,000 to 1,200 participants are there from international and national, this one from other states. And more importantly, 20 to 25% are the school and college students. When they attend this event for the 3 days, they get the knowledge. What we have done for the last 3 decades, the children come to know in a few hours. The capacity building happen. Then the second is when the children does the presentation, based on their scientific experiment related to the environment, when we appreciate, their confidence level improves. Now if you look at the youngsters who took part in this event, today they are professors in IITs and IISers, etc. That's our contribution to the nation. We have given the sensible youth who does a similar experiment, replicate the similar exercise and bring awareness in the thing. Then the second thing, to bring awareness for the governance and advocacy, you need to provide the information at the fingertip. In that regard, we have developed the spatial decision support system. For Western Ghats, we have created Western Ghats Spatial Decision Support System. For Bangalore, we have created Bangalore Urban Information System. Similarly, for Bangalore Lake, we have created Bangalore Lake Information System, which provides the information about all lakes which we have monitored. We have monitored 193 lakes in Bangalore. All the lakes, water quality you will get, and what kind of algae is there, what kind of zooplankton is there, what is the fish available there, and what is the service provided by the lake, how much revenue people get because of the lake. If they do comparative assessment across the pristine and the polluted lake, they will know the worth of the lake. That is what we have done through the lake. And another aspect is recently we worked on ecosystem services, the district wise. Even that we developed the decision support system, made it available to the public. Another very recent thing, the last week what we did is we provided a decision support system which gives the environmental performance indices at a taluk level, which gives which taluk is doing better from the environmental point of view and which taluks are not doing well. Now coming back to the Western Ghats decision support system, we integrated biological, ecological, geoclimatic, social and environmental parameters at a disaggregated level. We divided entire Western Ghats into 5 minutes by 5 minutes grid or 9 kilometer by 9 kilometer grid, and we pulled the data of all these variables, the ecology, biotic element, abiotic element, then the environment, etc. And based on their relative merit, we assign the weight, and then we group this grid into the 4 levels: ecologically sensitive region 1, 2, 3, and 4. If you look at the decision support system, red are ESR 1, dark green is ESR 2, light green is ESR 3, and blue are ESR 4. The ESR 1 and 2 are very important region from the perenniality of the water, availability, etc. And ESR 3 is slightly degraded, but we can improve that. Where ESR 4, some development can happen in the region. That means when we talk about the nation, we have also identified where you can do the development without the affecting the integrity of the ecosystem. That means you should not alter the integrity of ESR 1, ESR 2, and ESR 3. Now we have overlaid the village boundaries on that. When you look at the decision support system, you can find out whether your village is ecologically sensitive and what is the level of ecological sensitiveness, ESR 1, 2, or 3, or 4. So I launched this portal, on July 15th, when I was invited in Shimoga to deliver the KV Subarna Memorial Lecture. After my lecture, I launched this portal because I wanted to see the effectiveness of this kind of decision support system even from a remote area. Believe it or not, there was a question in the parliament within a month about this Western Ghats studies and the portal. Not only that, the Ministry of Environment and Forest sent a group of experts to discuss with me and to evaluate this portal. When they came to my lab, I did a presentation of the decision support system and I highlighted the services provided by the ecosystem in terms of money, the water services and the carbon services. And when I brought to their notice the need for the benefit what we get through this ecologically sensitive region, if you maintain the integrity, the carbon credit. Today with the warming of the earth, people are talking about the carbon credit. That means if you are sequestering the carbon or if you are capturing the carbon, you will get the money for that. That is what brought to the notice of the committee. The committee, after listening to my presentation, the next day, they met the minister in charge of the forest and environment in government of Karnataka. And he made a statement the same evening saying that the Kasturi Rangan committee report would be accepted. Now, when you look at the Madhav Gadgil committee report, I was I helped the committee at the local level. In this one, that's where we came up with the mapping of the eco-sensitiveness at taluk level. But it was a slight rigid thing. But when you look at the Kasarangan committee report, which is slightly diluted. For example, if there is a particular village which is important from the politician point of view, that particular village is excluded, whereas the surrounding all the villages are considered ecological sensitive except that village. So that is where we thought it. And this went to the Supreme Court. The National Green Tribunal asked every state government to give the list of the villages which are ecologically sensitive. But none of the government have responded to NGT. Then realizing bringing this information to the public, I thought of launching the decision support system. I made it available to the public at our portal at Indian Institute of Science. It is called Western Ghats Biodiversity Information System. So not only the judiciary, even the common man can visualize the portal at state level, eco-sensitiveness, district level, taluk level, and village level. And that's how, when the information goes to the appropriate the effective decision happens. Maybe the prudent management of the resources also will happen. We should be hopeful. You should not say that it has not happened so far. Will it happen? I would say it will happen as more and more youngsters like you taking part in the system and communicating to the wider section of society. You are also doing a wonderful job of taking the science to the wider section of the society. If you bring awareness among the public. And in Kannada we say, when Andhakara is removed, we will see the prosperity in the sea. The knowledge, the darkness has to be removed, the gap has to be removed. That can be done by all of us together.
Dr. It's good you mentioned about politicians and what happened in the center. Now, I want to actually ask you about policy from the policy level. Karnataka's groundwater policy as such is very, it's there, it's not there. I remember speaking to a few officials from the Israeli consulate, and they were telling me that in Israel, groundwater doesn't belong to you or me. It's controlled by the government. And what I have noticed over here is, if I have the money to dig a borewell, you have a well, I can dig the borewell. Your well is going to run out of water. But I have a borewell, I have the money, so I have water over here. But the water belongs to all of us. So don't you think that we need some sort of changes over here, equitable distribution of water everyone has, regardless of whether you have money or don't have money? The water should not belong to an individual person, it should belong to the government. So the government can actually make sure that everyone has it.
No, actually, as per the norm, groundwater is a common property. It belongs to everyone. It's a government property. Unfortunately, gaps in our system. You might have a good rule, a good legislation. See, that way we are fortunate. Our environmental legislations are foolproof. You look at our Forest Act or the Wildlife Act or the Water Act or even the Environmental Act of 1986. See, whenever the calamities happen, like Bhopal tragedy, we came up with the measures to control it, regulate it, etc. Similarly, the water. The Water Act talks about it, but only the thing is implementation has not happened. First and foremost thing is the science. We need to map the aquifers and we need to say that how much resource is available and how much get recharged every year. That has to happen. And that with that information, probably the government can take a wise decision. Now, as you rightly said, because of lack of information, one section of the society is taking an undue advantage of that. It has to come to an end. The irrational, they allowing the groundwater extraction through the groundwater, the drilling the thing is not appropriate. We need to have a policy in that, and more importantly, we need to bring the restriction on that. See, that is what the environmental EIA talks about it, environmental impact assessment. Before you get the consent for establishing industry or developing a large scale projects, housing project, etc., you are supposed to have an environmental clearance. The committee is supposed to do that job. There is a appraisal committee at the center level for the category A project, and similarly for the housing and the small scale project, we have a state level appraisal committee. Unfortunately, the vested interest getting into these committees as members have diluted the thing. Where they have allowed the lake encroachment. I have been protesting that. I have been talking about these things whenever there's encroachment happened. For example, Bellandur Lake. Between Bellandur and Agaram Lake, there's a wetland. The wetland is supposed to be conserved as per the Government of India rule, the wetland rule. But under single window clearance, the Chief Minister gives it for the tech park. Now, the builder who takes up this, not only he violates the norm of the wetland, he also further encroaches 3.5 acres of the lake. So then local people brought that to my notice. When that was brought to the notice, we prepared that, we did a spatial analysis. We brought out what is the level of encroachment. And we have also indicated how much in terms of the ecosystem services, how much that amounts to. About 3.5 acres of lake was encroached. When it was brought to the notice of NGT penalized the builder 149 crores. From that time, the project has stopped. So that means you can have a hope when science joins hands with the local people, there is a success. And judiciary also would be favorable to that. When the science is not integrated with local people, judiciary may not cooperate. That is where, the valuable information through the science can be taken to the much higher level. After that, penalizing the builder went to the Supreme Court asking for the review of that. The Supreme Court, NGT constituted a committee where I was a member. During that my visit, I was abused. The equipment my students carrying were all taken away by those builders mafia. But that was widely reported at that time. Then, we gave a report still saying that lake has to maintain its integrity. They say encroachment. Then the NGT constituted a committee. The next committee, when they again asked for the review of that earlier decision, the NGT Constituent Committee with me as a chairman. Then from that time, to today, we made sure that lake is not misused. My request to the government of Karnataka is to take back that area. That is a wetland which has been addressing mitigating the floods in Kormangala area. We need to take back, convert that into the wetland and maintain it. So that is the greatest contribution that the government of Karnataka can give to the people of that region. Let us not think about having industry everywhere. There is no need to have industries in every parcel of land in Bangalore. Now let us make the Bangalore livable. The first approach is to throw that tech park from that Bellandur, Agaram, the wetland, and make sure the people in that region do not face the vulnerable situation with the frequent flooding in that locality. That has to happen on priority.
Doctor, what's your vision for a sustainable water future, especially for a city like Bengaluru?
See, my prescription is too simple. We Bangaloreans are very simple. We require only 18 TMC of water, and we generate 18 TMC of wastewater. Now, if I treat that wastewater similar to the Jakkur Lake model through the nature-based solution, integrating constructed wetland and algal pond with a secondary treatment plant, you have a tertiary treated water which you can drink. Okay? When we do that, I get 16 TMC of treated water. Okay? The next option is the rainwater harvesting. The city of Bangalore receives 700 to 850 millimeter rainfall and on an average. And if I quantify the quantum of water, it amounts to 15 TMC of water. That means 70% of the water required for Bangalorean, we have already in the form of rainwater. The best approach is to catch the rainwater. There are two ways. One is rooftop harvesting, second is through the lake. When you do the rooftop harvesting, individual houses will have additional 4 to 5 months of water. The next best option is to rejuvenate the lake and retain the rainwater in the lake. When we retain the rainwater in the lake, you will see the groundwater recharge happen, as I have noticed in the case of Saraki Lake and also recently in Bellandur and Varthur Lake. When Varthur Lake was rejuvenated, surrounding groundwater table went up by 180 feet. When Saraki Lake was rejuvenated, about 300 feet increase in the thing. That shows that lake has to be rejuvenated. The silt what is deposited, we have to remove it to facilitate recharging. When we do that, we have the groundwater recharge. That is a clean water. Now 15 TMC because of rainwater and 16 TMC because of the wastewater treatment, you have 31 TMC in a city where the water requirement is 18 TMC. That means we have a surplus water situation. But to have that surplus water situation, I have a 5R prescription. First R is a responsible citizen. Bring awareness among the public and all sections of society, make them environmentally literate. When they become environmentally knowledgeable, they become sensible. When they become sensible, they become responsible. When they become responsible, they will allow the rejuvenation of the lake. They will, so that I can retain the rainwater in the lake and I can facilitate the groundwater recharge. And also, when they are sensible, they will allow the wastewater treatment. So with that, you will have the treated wastewater. So you will have a sustainable situation in the city of Bangalore. There is no need to get water from any region, including Mekedatu. Mekedatu will remove the 5,000 the hectares of forest, which amounts to about 200 billion rupees. That is the kind of you are spending 2,000 crores to loot the timber. Those are in that region is a dry deciduous forest. Hardly the timbers are there. The agenda of Mekedatu is to capitalize on the timber available in the region by spending 2,000 crore to exploit the resources worth 5,000 crores.
Making this statement, won't this get you into a lot of trouble with the government, since you work with them and you're...
No, the science is truth. I'm speaking truth. I am speaking truth not for my benefit. It is for the state benefit. It is for the community thing. So neither I am threatened, nor the government is threatened with this thing. Government understand what we are saying. They also, when we talk about it, see, this is where the job of the scientists come. Earlier, if you recall, in the princely state, there are Rajagurus used to be there. Their job is to alert the government. When they alert the government never took that suggestion as a criticism. They took it for the validating that thing. That is what happens. And that way, we are making the region. The problem associated with the Mekedatu project, it is a vital link between Cauvery, the sanctuary, and the neighboring thing. It is a hotspot for human, animal, wildlife conflict. We are making the region more vulnerable. You saw that last year and the year before that. Just because the elephant riding into the region, what kind of the vulnerable situation people face. If you want to mitigate the vulnerable situation, it is the responsibility of the government not to have illogical projects in the ecologically sensitive region or ecologically important region, hydrologically important region. My urge to the government is, please do not alter the integrity of Mekedatu region forest and improve the integrity by afforestation so that we can mitigate the human-animal conflict. Now, if you want to find out whether that will work, there is a RK mission is there in Shivanhalli. The Swamiji in that region silently has been working from 90. What he and his followers are doing is, through the farmers, they have planted the native species in the region. Earlier people used to go to the forest and they used to cut the trees, etc. for fuel wood. Swamiji has provided a LPG cylinder even before our Ujjwala program at the government of India level. So he has implemented it so that people are not dependent on fuel wood. They are not going to forest. At the same time, they enriched the region with the native species forest, which provided a food and water to the wild animals. That's how the wild animal conflict is minimized in Shivanhalli and surrounding area. That is what we need to do it in the Mekedatu region so that people in Kanakpura, Ramnagara are not faced into the vulnerable situation. If we do not do it, the leopards coming into our home is going to be a constant threat. Should we make our children face this vulnerable situation again and again? Or do we have to provide a safe environment so that children enjoy the environment and enjoy the benefit of the environment through the clean air and water?
Doctor, since you mentioned the Mekedatu project, which the government is and wants to actually go ahead with, I see a lot of differing voices when it comes to this, especially amongst environmentalists, experts like you. And I see many environmentalists and experts taking pot shots at each other when both want to actually save our environment. What do you have to say about that?
Well, the diversity is the required. Diverse opinions are required. Then only fine-tuning happens. I would say that when there are diverse views are there, it makes the policy maker or the thinker to think. So then they can do this one. See, my suggestion is go by the scientific principles, not by individuals, their perception. The science is not based on the perception. Science is based on the some true facts. We need to go by that. And when we do scientifically, you will not see any kind of backlashes in the region. See, there are bubbles will come in the system, bubbles make noise in the system, but they are temporary. But science will never die. Science is for the benefit of the society, and scientists is for the welfare of the society. And that is the agenda of Indian Institute of Science. That is how I have taken the science for the benefit of society. When I see the smile in the society, I feel fulfilled. Contentment is there. That's what every scientist requires. That's what every citizen in this land is required. Okay.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. TV Ramachandra. This was a good conversation, and personally, I have learned a lot. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And it's your job to communicate to the wider section of society. And I welcome criticism. Most welcome. Let us have a dialogue and let us understand the scientific principles in a better way. Thank you very much.